Hi everyone, it's Kathryn. I just wanted to film a hopefully quick video to give you a little bit more information about phonics. So I'm going to chat a little bit about the main purpose of phonics, the importance of phase 1 of phonics, and then onto a little bit of information about letter sounds and phonics for reading. So, when you think about phonics, if you ever do think about phonics, it's often summed up in terms of the teaching of phase 2, which is all about the method of teaching children to read and write by linking spoken sounds, which are known as phonemes, to the symbols that represent them, letters, which are known as graphemes. Your children will start their formal phonics teaching, usually beginning with a quick recap of phase 1, but then going quite quickly into phase 2 when they start reception. However, it's really important to realise that phonics is so much more than simply recognising and forming phonemes and graphemes. Phonics is more than phase 2. You know, there is a reason that the introduction of letter sounds is in the second phase of phonics and not the first. So the first phase of phonics, which is the phase that your children will really explore at nursery, is all about developing children's listening and speaking skills. So in phase 1, your children are taught about different types of sounds. There are environmental sounds, instrumental sounds, body percussion, things like clapping, tapping your body, stomping, rhythm and rhyme, alliteration, vocal sounds, and then exploring a little bit of oral segmenting and blending, which is all about, you might hear it as sound talk or robot talk, and it's all about hearing that separate sounds come together to form words. So d-og comes together to make dog. So phase 1 is absolutely vital in laying the foundations for further phonic work in the future. When your children are exploring different types of sounds, they are becoming aware of the different sounds around them. You know, they are differentiating between something like a car horn beeping and a microwave pinging. They are recognising rhythm and rhyme in words, you know, things like nursery rhymes are so much more than just songs. When they're exploring things like alliteration, something as simple as a game of I Spy, they are hearing initial sounds in words, and that helps when they come to segment and blend themselves. You know, things like a game of What's in the Bag, where you have lots of different objects hidden within a bag that all make a noise. Your children are listening to them, and then they're problem solving. They're making links between things that they already know and applying that to something that they don't know the answer to yet. So yeah, phase 1 is just so important, and it's really, really important that it's not rushed through and that it's not overlooked. There is just no benefit to rushing your children into learning letter sounds when phase 1 hasn't been explored fully or properly or in great depth. So, having said that, moving on to phase 2, I want to again emphasise that phase 2 will be taught to your children in reception. Whatever letter sounds they learn here with me, they will then be taught those letter sounds again when they get into reception. If your children are struggling to grasp these in nursery, don't worry, they will be taught them in reception. It all happens in reception. So, yeah, we use our professional judgment here at the nursery to decide whether we think some implementation of informal phonics teaching is appropriate. You might have noticed that this year I decided to hang fire a little bit on our phonics sessions. I think it was not long around this time in the year last year when some of the phonics videos went onto YouTube, which is, I mean, if we stop and think about that for too long, it's just insane. But yeah, I think there are other things in nursery and in your child's development that are more important, like their personal, social and emotional development. It's been a crazy year, so we decided to hang back a little bit before we implemented phonics this year, but we're into the swing of it now and the children are really loving it. So yeah, phase 2, phonics, letters and sounds. Letters and Sounds itself is a phonics resource created by the Department for Education. So it details the different phases and sets out an order for which to deliver phonic teaching. If you've got older children, or if you've had a little look yourself, you might have seen, you might recognise the sat pin order, so at and onwards to learning each letter sound, each phoneme and grapheme. But even though there is this resource, there are certain phonic programs that have been devised to assist in the teaching of phonics, mostly for schools, and the most famous of these are Jolly Phonics, which is mostly famous for its songs and actions when learning letter sounds, and Read Write Ink, which is mostly famous for its grapheme, like little tips and tricks and phrases to remember grapheme formation. So these programs do take some liberties with the order of the letters and sounds. Read Write Ink, for example, teaches the letter sounds, the phonemes, in a different order. So because of this, here at the nursery, I tend to mix the two when I deliver phonic teaching. I don't know what your chosen school uses for their phonic program, if they use one at all, and I don't want to cause any confusion within your child's mind and phonics by talking about Read Write Ink. You've got lots of different characters, and it gets a bit confusing. So the children love the Jolly Phonics songs, they love the phrases to form the graphemes, so we mix the two just to make it a little bit less confusing. So typically in Phase 2 phonics, I will teach a sound per week. We've got children that don't attend every day throughout the week, obviously. So teaching a sound a day, which is what your children will eventually do in some schools, just wouldn't work for us. And also, they don't need to learn a sound a day. So yes, and I want to emphasise that these sessions are really, really informal. They're quick, they're fun, they're interactive, they're short and snappy. Your child is not sat at a table with a pen and paper forming graphemes. It's not beneficial to them at this age to be learning like that. You know, sometimes we will chalk graphemes. Sometimes we'll form those graphemes with spaghetti. We'll get up and do musical statues. You know, there's no benefit to formalising our sessions here at the nursery. So having said that, when your child's, I'm hoping that when your child gets to school that their formalised phonics sessions are fun. I'm sure they will be. But yes, we want to keep them short, sharp, snappy. We don't want your children to get bored. We want them to have a love of phonics. We want them to have a love of reading, writing, and if they're boring, they're just not going to like it, are they? So yeah. Yes. Another important thing to remember with phonics is that learning the alphabet is not the same as learning phonics. Capital letters are not letter sounds, they're letter names. Your child won't learn to read and write using A, B, C, D. There's also an emphasis on the pronunciation of phonemes. So there's a funny thing called a schwa, which is the vowel sound that we make when pronouncing lowercase letters. So t, for example, t, and s. We don't pronounce that vowel, that sound, when we actually read words. Otherwise, a word like sat would be s-at, and that's just not what the word is. So, yeah, there are some letter sounds like y, for example, that you just can't say without the schwa. But yes, there's a whole realm of complicated, well, seemingly complicated things when it comes to phonics. But it's all about knowing that the sound that a letter makes rather than the letter itself, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, so teaching phonics can be complicated, but if you remember that it's all about listening and all about looking, that might help. So we change the shape of our mouths when we make certain sounds. For example, like s and f. Sometimes children struggle to differentiate between those two sounds, but if you get a mirror out and get them to look at their mouths, the way that your mouth forms when you make a s is totally different to a f. You get your teeth out for a f and not for a s. And then and sounds that phonemes that sound quite similar, they actually look different when you form them with your mouth. Makes a vibrating sound on your mouth rather than which is a soft sound. There's a lot to it, but yes, it's just trying to emphasise the fact that exploring phase 1 is so important. Exploring what sounds your body can make and listening to sounds orally really, really contributes to successful phonic knowledge when they come to learn phase 2. If you are wanting to extend your children's listening skills and phonic knowledge at home, there are loads and loads of great online and interactive websites and resources out there. Phonics Play in particular is a website that I've mentioned in the past that I really, really love. I think it's great. They are still offering a free login during the pandemic. I think at the moment they are going off the January login, which I think is Jan 21, and I think the login is home. But they have great games for phase 1, they've got great games for phase 2. It makes phonics fun and engaging, and again, we just don't want them to get bored, because if they get bored, they'll switch off. It'll just help raise their interest in reading and writing further down the line. I hope that this video has answered any questions that you might have had about phonics. If you didn't have any questions about phonics, then at least I hope I haven't created any more. But if I have, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Pop us an email, give us a call. But yes, I mean, even if I haven't answered any questions or haven't created any new ones, at least you've learned a new word, schwa. You can implement that into your Scrabble game in the future. So yeah, stay safe out there. Thanks so much for listening, and see you all soon. Bye.